Hello, hope you're doing really well. Today I've got a really cool treat for you. It's this building here, and it's the only building that remains of something really interesting and special, and of course it's Phoenix history, so we're going to have to cover it. So stay with me, find out more about this former mystery building. Let's go. Welcome back everybody. What a treat today. We are in an RAF abandoned pump house. It's not obviously the size that sort of makes this interesting, it's the story behind it. This pump house is the only brick built building, or pretty much remnant, I suppose you could argue, bar the pub that got removed because of the airfield, and the war memorial, forgive me, of RAF Chailey. RAF Chailey was an advanced landing ground for the RAF, and the only thing that's left of it is what we're looking at here, which is actually the former pump house. So RAF Chailey had pretty much operated between 1943 and 1944, and what we're looking at is really the remnants of the pump, really. Probably the most famous action of it was that it was the home of the 131st Polish Wing, which again there's a memorial for, and with 3 squadrons, 302nd, 305th I think, and 317th. And again it was the Plough Pub, I do believe, which was it had to basically be relocated to fit the airstrip, and obviously when we were passing by you can see how incredible the fields and everything are. It's quite wet today, sadly. So they demolished it, the Plough Pub, which was at the end of the runway, and then reconstructed it about half a mile away in good old Plumpton. But this advanced landing ground, which was basically advanced landing grounds were basically to support the invasion of continental Europe, really. So they weren't designed to be potentially permanent fixtures, which is why you don't really see much left. But what does remain is an interesting story. Like I said, this pump house is literally the only thing that remains. So obviously this would have been to pump through to the fuel reserves, or the fuel, and obviously it would have been located at one part of the edge of the airfield. And then as I'm looking up whilst I'm talking to you, you can see where the hinges, I'm assuming, are lock parts for where the door would have been. You can imagine it being quite loud in here, obviously. And then we've got this huge, it looks like a generator plinth, and you can see that there's a wall that divides it. Now, because it's quite wet today, we're going to crawl through that for a bit of a giggle. But it's basically a mirror image on both sides. So it's like one big sort of rectangular building split into 2, and it was just the pump house for the fuel reserve, or fuel dump. It was here. So I think what we should do is, because there's not much of this building, it still tells an interesting story, we'll crawl through and we'll have a look on the other side. Let's do it. Alright, so here we are on the opposite side, and it's way more flooded on this bit. I've got my boots are already wet, so I don't really sort of care too much, but it just comes up to my boots. So yeah, just about. Then looking out onto part of what would have been the airfield here. Incredible, really. And you can see, we'll come over to that as well. There's a few little remnants on the floor, but basically, like I said, it's exactly the same on either side. You can see like what's basically left of really what probably would have been these doors, and then, like we said before, what looks to be like a generator or something very similar for that fuel pump, or pump house, I suppose, which is what it's being labelled as. Remarkable, really. So I'm assuming that might have been part of the door here, due to the dimensions that are pretty similar. So, you know, as I sort of said before, I'm not the greatest World War II historian you're ever going to find, but I'm somebody who's passionate about history, and I try and get it right whenever possible. And obviously, we always said before, obviously for the top, it's always ventilation, and then for the bottom, it's always like some form of cabling properly. And you can tell that obviously, like I said, the structural dimensions are pretty much the same. This thick concrete wall. In fact, actually, at first, I remember people were sort of saying that this was kind of mislabelled as an air raid shelter, but it's definitely not. And obviously, we've seen these generator type of plinths before, these pumping plinths. I suppose, like in this case, because it was a pump house, you can imagine this was the what it needed. But like I said, not much. This is the last survivor, except for the rubble, which we are going to take a look at. So let's go and do it. Right, so because that is literally the only surviving piece that we have of RAF Chailey, we're just going to look at these two other little sections here. So obviously we know that that was the pump house, so we can assume that around this area, especially in here, would have been where the fuel reserves were. Like I said, it's sad because we don't really have any sort of much evidence of this, because it was, like I said, an advanced landing ground. But you can clearly see there's a section over there which is brick as well. We'll go back to that in a minute. And then we've got this, which is another plinth platform. And obviously we need to note that that was brick with a concrete top. And again, it looks actually like a civil shelter, actually, if you were to look at it and not really go into it. But yeah, we've got some remnants here. And because it's on the corner of the field, obviously we don't want our fuel dumps to be right in the centre of the airfield, because obviously a hit will make them just go like that. And we don't want really any of our aircraft being damaged. I apologise for my hair, by the way, just noticed, but hey, can't look good all the time. But yeah, again, nature will slowly reclaim and time will take over this former piece of World War II history. I think it's best that we take a look now at the final piece of this, just to sort of tally it up. Let's do it. I suppose one of these things today, like, you know, that obviously I try to pride myself, as I've mentioned many a time on Phoenix history, the fact that I always want to try and show you different things, and even if I'm not 100% knowledgeable on them, I try to at least shine a light on them. And the fact that we know that that was a pump house, pump station that was there, and we can clearly see some extra evidence, but because I don't really know any more than that in terms of this bit of area, it's very hard to tell. You can see that there's some red bricks there, another little rectangular section, and then there's a pile of bricks here. I'm assuming at some point the farmer wanted to demolish XYZ, because it probably just was, you know, this really interesting sort of section here. But more importantly for me, as I leave this now, like, I just think, you know, it is about trying to shine a light on the last remaining pieces of history that we have, and no matter how small and insignificant, this really is a ghost of a World War II past, because there is nothing like this that will be here once this is gone. The only thing that will remind us is the pub that got moved, the records that hopefully keep, but also the memorial for the Polish squadrons. It's a final long-lasting reminder of just how important history is and how quickly stuff like this can go. And it's because of that, when I was talking about stuff, that history really does matter. And yes, I might have got some wet feet, and you know, it might not be the biggest structure you're ever going to see, but standing in this field isolated alone, it tells a wonderful story. And hopefully it is with a video like this, and I've said this on many times, that hopefully it will never be forgotten. And I really hope not in time, because it is stories like this that just really captivate us, really enlighten us, and really give us a vision of something former in its past. And again, even though I might not be the world expert on World War II structures, I'm still going to record it. I'm still going to record it in its rarity. And I really hope all of you out there appreciate that. Anyway, in the immortal words of Phoenix History as I walk away, thank you so much for coming along with me. I really hope you enjoyed that video. Take care, everybody, because history matters, and I think we can all safely say it does on this occasion, doesn't it? Feel free to spread the word. The channel really goes a long way. It helps me, encourage me to go out and hopefully document more. Take care, everybody, and I'll of course see y'all very soon. You ready? Kapow.